Have you ever wondered how much time actually goes into making a YouTube video? It's not just simply pressing record. So today I'll be breaking down with you the real process and time it takes behind the scenes. Hi everyone, I'm Nate, an Oxford graduate engineer, avid learner and passionate entrepreneur. And I've now been making these YouTube videos for roughly 6 months. So today's episode I want to share with you the process to make these videos and how much time it takes. So it's important to firstly mention that of course it will depend on what type of video you are making. So for my channel I mostly focus on basically a podcast-esque me speaking, which therefore means that there's not too much editing to do and also not many animations. But of course, if you want to do something much trickier with, let's say, lots of animations, then of course that will take a lot longer than my videos. And also vice versa, if, for example, you're doing a kind of a live streaming video with almost no editing, then of course that pretty much will be record and then later on upload. But for most people, that won't be the case. And then secondly, I personally, given it's still early-ish days, put a big emphasis on what I call effort to reward. So what I mean by that is that I put a focus on trying to get regular videos out there as opposed to uploading much fewer and trying to perfect one, spending tens of hours, which whilst I'm starting out wouldn't get many views anyway. And look, there can be a big debate here because it's a bit like a chicken and egg scenario. Because initially, on the one hand, you do not want to spend too much money and time on a video when there's a 100% chance of basically not many people seeing it. But at the same time, of course, if you haven't got nice content, there's also a very high chance no one's going to keep watching your content. So you want to get a nice balance. So that's where I find that for podcast-esque material, you don't actually need too much. I mean, if you look online, there are many YouTubers out there that have millions of subscribers and views, and they're ultimately just a person sat in front of a camera with some good lighting, some good audio, and that's about it. So my view is, as long as you have something decent, okay, so me for example, I've got right now here 2 ring lights, and I'm using actually just my own iPhone, no special audio device. For now, that's, I feel, good enough. And of course, if then your channel picks up, then by all means, you can invest in better equipment. That's a good starting place. But ultimately, it does depend on what the crux of your video is about. Because for example, if your channel is all about amazing cinematography, well, of course, if you're doing little quick videos and it looks very poor, then no one's gonna watch that. Whereas, let's say for my channel, more a conversational channel, more a podcast, then in theory, what you're seeing isn't really that important. The important bit should, in theory, be what comes out of my mouth. So you could actually, hear my content without actually watching the video on YouTube. So again, it will depend on what content you are putting out there to your channel. But look, let's start now by breaking down exactly how long it takes to make my videos. Right, so to start off, it normally takes me about 1 hour to decide on what I'm going to talk about and to write a quick template or script on what I'm going to be saying. But this, by the way, can sometimes take even up to 2 hours. But let's say the median, the average time will be 1 hour. Then once I've done that, the next stage is to record the video. And let's say if my video was a 15 minutes long video on YouTube, well, normally the actual recording of me in front of the camera will take 2 to 3 times longer than that recording. So for 15 minutes, it might take between half an hour to 45 minutes. And then once you factor in stuff such as getting the lights, getting changed, doing your hair, whatever, I would say add an extra 10, 15 minutes to that. So I would say in general, it will take again roughly 1 hour for the whole process. So you might be wondering why it takes me 2 to 3 times longer to record it than the actual recording itself. And that's because, well, I don't do it all in one big chunk. What I'll do is with my laptop right here, I might do a few sentences, then look back at my notes, see what comes next. If I make, for example, a stutter or say the word wrong, I'll repeat it. I might think of a different way of saying something. So ultimately, it does take a few takes. Now, of course, this will depend on the person. Hopefully, if you're doing videos yourself, you might find that you can do it perfectly first time, or at least close to it. I can't, but you never know, perhaps you can. And of course, it does also depend on what type of video you are creating. So for some of my earlier content on, let's say, working out, that I could basically ad-lib it because it wasn't too important what I was saying word for word. Whereas instead, for more of my technical videos, that's more important to say it perfectly, so therefore I will have to refer back to my notes more often. And actually, in case you're wondering, when you see my videos like cuts, like this, that hasn't been done by me for visual effect. That's because at that point, I would have looked at my laptop for a new sentence or made a mistake and had to therefore cut the video. So in case you're wondering, that's what's happening there. And this ultimately goes back to what I mentioned about the effort to reward, because of course, in a perfect scenario, I wouldn't want to have these cuts in my videos, especially when I do it mid-sentence sometimes. But what I will say is from personal experience, if you try and do a perfect take, perfect paragraphs, you'll probably take 4 to 5 times longer than if you weren't doing that. So again, do you want to have a 10-hour long video to make just to initially have 5-10 views? Up to you. Of course, as you get a bigger channel, then go for that. But initially, just get out the content. Okay, so now we've done the video, the next section will be the editing of your video. And I like to use a software called CapCut. Now, of course, for your first time, you'll have to learn how to use this, but let's for now assume that you do know how to use this. So let's say that you've made a 40-minute long video that you have to edit. Now, initially, chances are that you're going to have to spend at least, therefore, 40 minutes editing, because you have to, of course, go through the whole video to see if you like what you've made. So that's going to be, at least the very start, the minimum. Now, as you get a bit better, at least on CapCut, what's quite nice here is that on your video, it shows you basically the amplitude of the audio file. So let's say for me, in that scenario, it was a 15-minute kind of good video, but it took 40 minutes to record it. So what happened there is, in some sections, for example, it might have me repeating something 4 times in a row. I do it once, wrong, and again wrong, and again wrong, and the 4th time, I do it properly. Well, luckily there, on the amplitude of the audio wave, you can see that, well look, you've got a lot of ups and downs, and suddenly I take a 10-second break, there's nothing there, and the next sentence. So what I do personally is, of course, I know that the end of that little section was the good one, so I can basically kind of skip through and start missing out sections of the video, because I know that clearly the first half of that little section was me messing up. So as you get more used to editing videos, there are some tricks you can do to speed it up. But what I would say is, for a 40-minute video, that might make you get through it in 30 minutes or 35 minutes, definitely not 10 minutes. And then usually for the video, there'll be other bits and bobs to edit too. So for example, if I'm doing a screen recording on my laptop when I'm discussing something, I have to, of course, download that screen recording, import it to CapCut, line it up perfectly to video files so that it makes sense that I'm speaking about the right thing at the right time. That takes time. I might, for example, have text coming up on my screen. I might have to download pictures from Google and put them into the right places. Also animations, kind of screens coming left to right. Nothing too tricky, but they do add up. So I would say that on average, for a 40-minute video, kind of the video file, it will take me 1 hour to be completely finished once you've added in also music, etc. So 1 hour. Right, so we're almost at the end now. So the last few things to do are things such as your thumbnail, the text on the thumbnail, and the title. So the thumbnail can take quite a long time. Now, for me, what I've done personally is I now have separate templates for my thumbnail for my different type of videos. So for example, if I have a tech one, I think it might have been an orange background. If it was more education, it was more of a dark blue. And I had my templates, which I make on Canva. So really actually for this, all I do personally is I get a different picture myself, get a few images online, and that's about it. So it takes me from the whole process about 20 minutes to get that thumbnail sorted out. Now, of course, this is quick for me because I already have on Canva lots of pictures of me with the background removed for me to quickly be able to use it on my thumbnails. So if you're someone who wants to create a completely different thumbnail every single time, then scrap 20 minutes. You're talking more an hour plus, because it did take about an hour to make my templates initially when I was making those templates. And then actually also for my own thumbnails, what you might notice if you're paying attention, I could often use actually the same picture of myself because, again, going back to effort to reward, I feel that for most people who might not be watching, very carefully my thumbnails from 10 videos ago, you would have noticed that it's the same picture. But of course, you do want to eventually change them, but at least initially, just get about 20, 30 pictures of yourself, and that's probably fine. But very, very key point here, do make sure, that at least your templates, you have spent time on it, because the thumbnail is a massive, massive thing here for your YouTube. People are going to click on your video because of your thumbnail, what it looks like. And on top of that, what the caption says, if you have words on your thumbnail. So make sure that you spend time on picking that caption, because that will increase your click-through rate. So basically, what that means is, for everyone that has your video pop up on their screen, say when they're scrolling on the recommendations, is how many of those people that have seen visually you on their page, who has clicked on it to watch your video. That's your click-through rate, your CTR. And of course, what happens here is, if you get a very low CTR, that means for the algorithm of YouTube, they'll be going, nope, don't share any more, you're done. So really important that you get catchy looking thumbnails. And that also means that, in theory, be slightly clickbaity about the caption on your thumbnail. Now, what I'm not saying is to flat out lie. If you do that, all that will happen is people will watch the first half a minute of your video, notice it's not linked to what you said on your caption, and then that will simply plummet your view rate if they all click off. So don't do that, but make it exciting. And the good thing about this in 2024 is that we now have ChatGPT. So ultimately, I simply ask it to give me 10 selections, 10 choices, and I'll pick one. And actually, it's the exact same thing for doing the actual kind of description for your video when you're uploading it afterwards to YouTube, and also for the long title of the YouTube, So you have your caption words on your thumbnail, you have your title of your YouTube page, and also the description for your YouTube video. And then the final bit is simply to go onto your YouTube Studio account and actually upload your video. There will be a few little questions to answer there, but it's not very much, and it will take you roughly 5 to 10 minutes. So if we add up the whole thing there, so we had an hour or so, or hour to 2 hours of the initial idea creation, then an hour actually recording the video, then we had an hour editing, then 20 minutes doing your thumbnail stuff, and then 10 minutes on top of that doing the actual uploading to YouTube. That's about 3.5 hours. But I will round up to 4 because the first section can take longer. So there, in a nutshell, is how long it takes me to make my videos. On average, 4 hours. And what I find quite amusing is that before I made any videos, I thought that to make a half-an-hour video might take 90 minutes, an hour and a half, simply record it, little idea, edit it in half an hour, voila, done. Was not the case. So it makes sense to me now more, since making videos, why you see these YouTubers always, asking for please subscribe, please like, please comment, because these videos do take a very long time. And remember, my content is, very basic. It's simply me and a camera, and that's about it. A lot of these content, if I take 4 hours myself, they'll be taking 20, 30, 40 plus hours. So it makes sense why, to show some support, because you might watch a 10-minute video, it took them a lots longer than that. And lastly, just remember, you don't have to do the whole thing in one big go. So me personally, I tend to roughly on a Saturday, do my first 2 hours, so the brainstorming and the recording, and then on Sunday, the next day, I'll do the last 2 hours of the editing and thumbnails, just to split it up. So I hope you enjoyed this video and now have a better idea of the effort, let's say, it takes to do a YouTube video and start a channel. Hopefully this hasn't scared you too much off, and you will take the step to making the channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and bell notification. Feel free to leave any comments and any suggestions for future content. And as ever, onwards and upwards.